Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm super happy to be here with you today. I'm Gina Schatz, the developer of the Schatz method, and I've got something really fun I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about partnering. Partnering for a pain-free world is what I like to call it. And that is, can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And what I want to talk about today is what I mean by partnering with other practitioners and specifically other modalities, right? So there's lots of modalities in the world, and I think there's a place for all of them. I absolutely think there's a place for all of them. And sometimes a modality is not what's indicated. And so what I want to share with you today is what I know about each of the modalities and when they're indicated and when they're not, when it comes to navigating pain and pain relief and restored function with our clients. And that really matters because our clients are asking us these questions. And so we want to have the answers for them so we can guide them in the right direction, especially if we're inviting them to cross-train their bodies, if you will. Not necessarily cross-train like working out, but like a couple different things to get them to the results that they're looking for. So we're going to dive in today, and I want to talk to you specifically about chiropractic, podiatry, and acupuncture, and a few different aspects that I know about each of those modalities and how they might support you in gaining some clarity and some authority when you're talking to your clients about what they should do and what works with what, and how to partner with them and the other practitioners that they're working with so that you can all work towards the same practice. End goal being pain relief permanently and restored function. For those of you I've not had the privilege of meeting until now, I'm Gina Schatz. I am the developer of the Schatz method, which is a practice, a method, a methodology of working folks through certain practices to get them end results of permanent pain reduction and restored function. It is a method that is both for movement and manual practitioners. It's something that I made up clinically along the way when I was looking for my own solutions. And I started as a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, a dance instructor, and a background in orthopedic work. So I was really on the hunt to get folks to move freely without pain and to also support them in any way that I could if they had had an injury or previously existing condition or any surgeries that they were still rehabbing from so that they could be 100% pain-free. And when I got the formula for this method, I started teaching it to other practitioners, and I love it. I love it. I love it. So that's what I'm up to, and that's the basis that I'm coming to in this conversation. Because just like you, I have clients often who say, well, but why didn't my doctor tell me that? Or I've been going to chiropractic, weekly for 6 weeks or so, and it's helping, but the pain is still there. Or I'm not sure if I should try acupuncture. Someone told me that it'll help me with muscle aches and pains, but what do you think about that? And so my clients are asking me these questions, and I'm sure yours are as well. And it really matters that we give them the right answers. And the reason why it's besides the obvious, the reason why it's important to give them the right answers, I like to think about it as a New Yorker. So I used to live in New York for many years. And if you've ever visited New York, or if you're also a New Yorker, you know that like getting around is like super important. And most people are on foot, and you turn one wrong direction and it could literally put you, off schedule so much that you miss your train, and then you miss the show, and then you miss like a domino effect of problems. And so every once in a while when I'd be in New York, someone, a tourist, someone visiting would stop me and say, so is 10th Avenue that way or that way? And in my haste, I would say, it's that way. And then I'd keep walking and realize, oh, shoot, totally turned them in the wrong direction. Oh my gosh, I feel horrible about that. It's going to take them a good 20 minutes before they realize they're going in the wrong direction, then 20 minutes to correct that, and then the time it was going to take them to actually get into the right direction. Like turning someone just slightly off the direction that they're at, just slightly off the path, can really have a domino effect of negative results for them. And by negative results, when I'm thinking about clients, what that usually looks like is they've been in pain with the same kind of pain for a long time, like 6 to 9 months, sometimes a few years, and they've not had any results. And they've been to many different practitioners. They've been to physical therapy, they've been to chiropractic, they've been to massage therapy, they've done a yoga class, they did a Thai massage, like they've tried all the things, and they're starting to wonder if it's solvable. So they have doubt. They're not walking around in faith, they're walking around in fear. They're not sure if you as the practitioner are going to give them anything different than the last 5 practitioners were able to provide for them. And they're spending a lot of time and money, and they're not out of pain, and they're spending time away from their family and their loved ones. So it's a problem when we just like have them try something and we're not really sure if it's going to work. It has a domino effect that affects their quality of life. So I'm pretty passionate about this topic for a lot of reasons. And that's like the baseline of why I'm passionate about it, because we want our clients to have their life restored. We want them to be out of pain. We want them to move freely and get on with the things that they love and not spend any time on the things that aren't working for them. So we need to know what works and what doesn't work for whom and why. So again, I believe that all modalities are amazing and they all work. They all have their rightful place. And our responsibility is to know what work they do and what is the rightful place and whether or not it applies to our client. If out of the gate, you're thinking that you're the only practitioner that your clients need, I invite you to think wider than that, because I know that you're amazing at what you do. I know you are, because that's the kind of practitioner that I attract. That's why you're here with me right now. I know that you're amazing at what you do. I'm also really skilled at what I do, and I don't do everything. I'm not trained in it. I've been at this game for 3 decades and I still am not trained in some things I'm not trained in. So it matters to me to partner with other practitioners who are wildly skilled at what they do that's different than what I do, so that my clients can get everything that they need and deserve. So we want to be generous in our referrals. We want to be generous in the way we partner with people and not afraid to do that. And we also want to know who to refer them to, because if you are their first touch point, they know, like, and trust you. And when they know, like, and trust you, it matters that you give them information that is going to be in value for them, because they're going to take your information and go run with it, right? Because again, you are their source for them. So I wanted to just talk to you a little bit again about 3 specific modalities: chiropractic, podiatry, and acupuncture. And I want to invite all of you who are here, thank you all for being here. I want to invite you all to ask questions at any time. So if you have any questions that come up, you can type them in the chat. You're welcome to come off mute. You're welcome to come off camera and ask me your questions. I will happily answer them. It gets to be a conversation between us. You don't need me, and I don't need to be just a talking head talking at you. I'd like to serve you. So as I'm sharing, if there's a question that you have on clarity, or if there's a point that you'd like to add that would add context to the conversation, absolutely, please contribute. And I just want to say hello to all of you before I dive in. Those of you who are here already, Betsy, Harizel, Joan, Len, Mary, I see you all. Thank you all for being here. Again, please feel free to connect with me, communicate either in the chat or come off mute and off on video, and we can continue our conversation. After I'm done sharing what I want to share here, there'll be open Q&A. So you'll have plenty of time to ask questions, even if it's on a topic that I haven't covered today, okay? So I'm here to serve. All right, let's dive in. So chiropractic, I get this question a lot from practitioners. Practitioners tend to think that because of probably my delivery that I don't like chiropractic, and that's not true. That is not true. However, I do think that chiropractic is something to consider with some honesty, and that is for a couple of reasons. First is chiropractors are doctors, which is amazing. Congratulations to all of you who are chiropractors. Chiropractors are doctors, and when our clients, when the people that we serve are looking for solutions, they will often feel a lot of comfort in reaching out to someone who has the title of doctor. I get it. And chiropractors are limited scope, just like we are limited scope. I have a medical license too, but I can't do surgery, so I have a limited scope medical license. And what that means is that we get to know what our limits are. The clients that we serve might not understand that there's limits, like license to license and doctorship to doctorship. Our clients might not understand where the parameters are around that. So they have a lot of faith when they hear doctor, and chiropractors are doctors. So that's awesome. And chiropractors are the first line of information for sure. The modality of chiropractic, by definition, is high velocity, high impact to joints specifically, which means they are moving bones at the joints where 2 bones meet, and where 2 bones meet, ligaments connect them. It's anatomy, right? When ligaments connect bones, and high velocity and high impact are added to that juncture between bones at the ligaments, that means that the ligament is affected as well, not just the bones, the joints, the bone structures, and what's between them is affected as well from the chiropractic adjustment. Why does this matter? It matters because in a hypermobile constitution, the ligaments are already going to be very lax. Okay, what does that mean? Let me just back up here. All constitutions are not necessarily good recipients for long-term chiropractic. Is 1 or 2 chiropractic adjustments going to be okay for all modalities? Safely, I could say most probably yes. Okay, there's always certain instances where it's not indicated. I'm not here to diagnose anybody. Certainly, there's no one in the room for me to be diagnosing, and it's out of my scope to do that at this juncture in this format. But generally speaking, is chiropractic okay a few times? Yeah, even for all constitutions. Here's where it gets dicey. In a hypermobile constitution, which is different than a normal range constitution or a hypomobile constitution, and if you don't know what that is, please do find out. I have 3 courses where I walk through exactly how to identify constitutions, how to test for it, how to test it in your clients so that you have that information at the beginning of your treatment plan with them. And it matters because hypermobile constitutions and hypomobile constitutions require very different things from not only movement and manual practitioners, but also from chiropractic. They need different things. Here's what I mean by that. In a hypermobile constitution, imagine that 2 bones held together by a ligament between them. 2 bones are the structures that make up the joint and the soft tissue between them. And if the connective tissue between the 2 bones is very lax, those bones are going to have the opportunity to move pretty freely very often. Okay. And a constitution in someone's body doesn't change. It never changes. Even after we've repaired from injury, gone through our strength training programs, done all of our regular yoga and held long poses, we cannot change our constitution. We can support our constitution, but it never changes. Once you're hypermobile, it's like saying, I have brown eyes. That's going to be an is for my lifetime in this vessel on my time on the planet. So when these 2 bones are held together by connective tissue that's very lax, the tissue is always very lax. And when the tissue is very lax, it allows the 2 bones to move pretty freely, different than hypomobile constitutions where it's taut, right? Like a lot of structure and support and density in connective tissue in a hypomobile constitution. So if I have a hypermobile constitution and I have laxity that allows these bones to move, it makes sense that I'd be out of alignment pretty frequently. Absolutely. I'm literally like pickup sticks walking around. I call hypermobile constitutions like willow trees. We kind of bend and move and bend and move. And that means our bones, our joints are like bending and moving and bending and moving. So would a chiropractic adjustment seem to be something valuable for 2 bones that are kind of moving freely from each other and the joint structure either is not in the right place or it gets locked not in the right place? Yeah, makes sense that a chiropractic adjustment that would move a joint structure would move it back into alignment. Absolutely. But here's the key. Because of the definition of chiropractic being high impact and high velocity, what it does is it wrenches the ligament to cause that movement to happen. That's the definition of it. It's not a yes, it's not a good or bad. It's just an is. It's like that is that modality. So it wrenches on the connective tissue to get the bone structures, the joint structures to move freely. And that's a good thing when it's needed. Over and over again, though, that wrenching on the ligament will continue to weaken an already lax ligament, which means the bones will continue to move freely and continue to be out of alignment. And now we're back into a Groundhog's Day, which we talked a couple of weeks ago about how we don't want that. We don't want that. Our clients don't want that. It doesn't feel purposeful to work that way. So in that instance of hypermobility, regular, frequent chiropractic to a hypermobile constitution doesn't help. It will always feel like the bones need to be cracked, that the joints need to be adjusted because they're free floaters. But cracking them and then weakening the connective tissue so that they move again, so that they get to be cracked and then moved again, that's a Groundhog's Day approach. That's not a modality that's solving the genesis of the problem. The genesis of the problem is where we always want to go. And that's what we target in the SHOTS method. We look for what the genesis of the problem is, and we have a methodology to walk us through a solution, which is different person to person. But the end goal of a method is that we always reach the end goal, which is to get someone through to their goal based on what they present with. If they present with a hypermobile constitution, what they need is strength. They don't need things loosened anymore. They don't need stretching, although they will feel tight. They don't need regular chiropractic, which will degrade the constitution of the ligaments. They need strength training. And most people who are hypermobile, they don't like to strength train because it feels like a lot of work for them. So that's my talk at this moment on chiropractic. I hope that's resonating with you on the why. Again, I have nothing against any other modality. I have a wide network of practitioners that I readily refer my clients to when needed. And the when needed part is important. So we want to make informed recommendations and informed referrals, not just random referrals because they're a doctor, right? We don't want to make the mistake that our clients can make as well. We want to know our anatomy and know what each modality does to the anatomy so that we can make an informed referral, okay? So that's my share on chiropractic. Mylin, I saw you come in. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. The other modality that comes up not as frequently as chiropractic, but it comes up kind of sneakily, if you will, is podiatry. And I love podiatry. I had a podiatrist in my life. I've had foot surgery in my life. Thank God my podiatrist did that. I love podiatry when it's the modality for the symptom, right? So when podiatry is not the modality for the symptom or the genesis is when the genesis that's causing the symptom starts up in the pelvis, like in the sacrum. So the sacrum is the keystone of the structure of the body. And if the sacrum is askew, it will prevent everything else from being in alignment. And that's fact, right? That's another anatomical fact. Again, I have been after the sacrum for the entirety of my career, and I have figured out a way to address the sacrum and make sure that I can make positive effects on the sacrum without being a chiropractor, right? So I don't do high impact, high velocity adjustments because that's not my license. I'm not licensed to do that. But I have developed ways to navigate the sacrum and affect it so that it can balance itself in the structure. Every once in a while, I still need the support of a chiropractor, but most of the time I don't. But I'm not doing high impact, high velocity adjustments. The sacrum being the keystone of the body is super important, as I mentioned, because it will prevent anything else from being in alignment. And the way the body is structured, with the feet being at the bottom of the body, of course, it takes in impact from the earth and it sends it all the way up the legs, from the tibia up into the femur, up into the acetabulum where the joint structure is, ball and socket joint of the hip, and then into the innominants and then back into the sacrum. I'm hoping that you are following that, and I would love it if you were. If you're not, please get some more CEs under your belt because that's a really important chain and it will change the way you work with folks, whether you're working with them through movement or whether you're doing manual work for them. We want to know what they're up to when they're moving so we know how to follow the input into their body and where we put our hands if we're doing manual work. So that's an important chain. And for those of you who have followed like fascial chains, you know that there's a chain that comes from the bottom of the feet up into the pelvis and crosses in the back. There's a posterior chain, there's the spiral chain, there's lots of chains. So we know that what's happening in the feet functionally is affected by what's happening in the pelvis and other places of the body. And as the sacrum being the keystone of the body, if the sacrum's not in alignment, all the other chains will be affected from their starting point to their end point. So why this is important in podiatry is that by law, podiatrists are only permitted to work from the knee down. They're only permitted to work from the knee down. Just like I'm not permitted to do surgery, they're not permitted to do certain things. And the same thing with chiropractors. They have limits in their license as well. We all do, but it's meant to be that way because we get to focus on what we know and not dabble in things we don't know. So by law, podiatrists can work only from the knee down. Why is that important? It's important because if there's something functionally happening in the feet that is part of one of those chains that we all know about as body workers, or if something functional is happening in the feet that's actually stemming from an imbalanced sacrum and the chain of events from the feet all the way up the legs and up into the pelvis through the innominants and into the sacrum, if that chain reaction, if that connection, if that referral path is actually at play, and a client goes to a podiatrist for the symptoms that show up in their feet, by law, the podiatrist can only help them from the knee down. They can't actually get to the genesis of the problem. And again, with the title of doctor, a client wouldn't necessarily know that. They would think that a doctor has a wide spectrum of knowledge, and they do, but they don't know everything. They don't know everything. So for functional work, for those of us who are doing functional work and corrective functional work and movement practices, and even therapeutic and neuromuscular manual work, we know that there's a connection to everything in the body. 80% of the pain is referred from somewhere else. So if we know that there's a functional pattern happening in the feet and or pain in the feet, there's only really a 20% chance that it will be found and remedied then in the feet. And the reason why podiatrists can work from the knee down, anybody know? Why is that the demarcation? Why is it from the knee down? It's answered in your anatomy knowledge. The reason why podiatrists can work from the knee down and not the ankle down, for example, is answered in your anatomy. Anybody know? You hear the Jeopardy music playing? Okay, the reason why anatomically it makes sense that legally a podiatrist can work from the knee down is because that's where the muscles of the feet start, right? They start underneath the knee at the top of the tibia, and most of the muscles in the lower limbs are actually muscles that move the toes. That's how they're designed. And that's just written straight up in our anatomy. So it makes perfect sense that that's where a podiatrist who works on the pods, the feet, that makes sense that that's their scope of anatomy right there in that area, which is amazing because they do really important work. Like I said, thank goodness for the podiatrist who performed my surgery. However, if surgery was done to try to eliminate symptoms of pain that are stemming somewhere higher up in the body than the knee, then that's not the right approach. That's not the approach that's going to solve the problem, because the genesis of that person's pain being above the knee is still going to be there even after the surgery is finished. Okay, so that's why we want to know, like, what are the parameters of podiatry and what works and how are things connected, and is that the right modality for you? Is it partly podiatry and partly more movement correction? Is it a partnership that I get to embark in between you and your other practitioners? Most often, yes. Like I said, I have a wide network of practitioners that help me get the job done, and I need them. Exactly. All right, the last modality that I'm going to touch on today is acupuncture. And I know that there are a few acupuncturists here in our community. Welcome. We love you. I'm so glad that you're here. And I am not an acupuncturist, although I did study Eastern medicine for a long period of time. I am trained in shiatsu. I studied all of the meridians. On and on in a few different iterations along my career path. And the last place was in New York City. And they have amazing acupuncture schools in New York City. So I know enough to know, again, like what's up. And acupuncture as a modality is brilliant. We talk about it in our Inspired Beyond Anatomy Level 1 course. We do both Eastern and Western anatomy and physiology in that course. And acupuncture is definitely one of those modalities that serves Eastern anatomy, in my opinion, brilliantly because of the complexity of the meridians. And I'm not here to give you an Eastern anatomy lesson today, but I will briefly say that the meridians are literally the energy channels in our body that connect us heaven to earth and keep us rooted and grounded and nourished right here while we're walking on the earth. And it's super important. The blend and the yoking between where Eastern and Western anatomy meet is actually brilliant. And the energy that we have in our body definitely serves the parts, if you will, the tangible pieces of anatomy in our body, right? So our organs are fed by our energy, just like our organs are depleted from our stress, which is energy, and on and on. So in this very important practice of acupuncture, it's pretty complicated. You know, doctors of acupuncture, again, the title of doctors of acupuncture study their lifetimes to be really good and accurate at what they do. And the reason for the need for accuracy is because the points that they're working on are so specific and so tiny. They're literally not much bigger than the point of the needle, you know, the point of a needle. Right? So it's super tiny spots that they get to approach with accuracy. And those spots are the acupuncture points along a meridian. So the meridian is the chain the channel, if you will, of energy that's in our body, and the points along those meridians are all numbered. I at one point knew all the numbers. We were tested on this and how to move the energy heaven to earth or earth to heaven. It moves in 2 different directions, and the specificity of these points is really necessary to get a concentrated point to move the energy in the direction that we get to move it in. So for acupressure, we use our hands for that. Shiatsu, we use our hands for that. In acupuncture, they use needles, and it's a very specific spot. That very specific spot is called a tsubo, T-S-U-B-O, a tsubo. And a tsubo is a concentrated spot on that meridian, and it's just below the surface of the skin. It's not below the 4 layers of skin. It's not like they poke needles in. There's no drawing of blood, if you will, in acupuncture treatments. So we know that it's within the layers of the skin, and it's at a very exact point. And for any of you who've ever had acupuncture, I know that you felt it. I have felt it. When the tsubo is the right tsubo for the job, and the acupuncturist accuracy is right in the center of that tsubo, you feel it's like an electrical charge moving through your body. It's wild and amazing. And it does balance our energy. Okay, awesome. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I cannot tell you the number of clients that I've had who said that their acupuncturist used acupuncture needles to, quote, release a muscle. That's not possible. It's possible if the energy in their body was connected to their muscle tension. And then what the acupuncturist was doing was addressing the energy and the flow of energy, or the concentration of energy. But it is a mistake to think that an acupuncture needle is inserted into a muscle and let it relax. That's called dry needling. That's not acupuncture, and it completely distorts the benefit of the flow of energy and the balance of energy, and why that's important in our body and in the bodies of our clients. The reason there's several reasons I'm driving this point home, but one of the reasons I'm driving this point home is that I see folks as human beings as a Venn diagram of 3 equal balanced parts, right? Actually 4, but when I'm working as a practitioner, it's 3. And those 3 are physical, right? They're pieces, parts, and their pain, their physical pain. The second is their mental, like our thoughts create meaning, which create results, which, we can think ourselves well, we can think ourselves ill. And also our energy and emotions. And the energy pointing at this knowledge that I know that Eastern medicine brings into the wholeness of our being. We are energy beings just as much as we are mental beings and physical beings. So why it's important is because in any one of those 3 categories, again, I see it as a Venn diagram where there's these 3 parts of who we are, and the circles come together and overlap a little bit. So where there's an overlap, it could look like someone's energetic symptoms show up physically because the body is trying to communicate and get their attention. So it could look like low back pain. For example, we know that organs refer to different places, right? We know that people who have low back pain can fear that they have kidney problems because they've been told that there's a connection between the 2. One is organ and the other is musculoskeletal, right? There's another layer to that, though, which is also the Eastern component. So the energy that runs through the kidneys is our baseline energy. It's called our Jing. So if the energy, our baseline energy is off, it can be, because it's associated with an organ, it can bring an organ to communicate through the musculoskeletal system. And we could be treating over and over again low back pain and actually miss the genesis. We can be treating musculoskeletal, let me be accurate. We could be treating musculoskeletal low back pain and miss the genesis of the problem and just keep repeating, again, the Groundhog's Day rinse and repeat kind of way of working. So it's important for us to understand what acupuncture is and what it isn't, so that we can be clear with our clients on whether or not it's the modality that they need or the modality that wouldn't really support their end game or they're reaching their goals. And it matters to me that we are all, whether you're a movement or a manual practitioner, it matters to me that we're accurate in our messaging, that we're honest in our messaging, and that we're clear so that our clients understand exactly what we do and what we don't do, so that our clients know exactly what's happening with them, not at them or to them in their session with us. And so that our clients also can have empowerment around what's happening with them, right? It's not that they're like separate from their body and the only way that they get connected from their body is if they come to us and then get information from us and then go home with this separateness in their body. No. Our role here, in addition to the skill that we bring to the table, is to bring our clients into wholeness with their experience in their physical body. And that means explaining things to them on how it works and how it doesn't work and what we do and what we don't do and how and why our work is affecting their body and what their body's response is and what that means. And while I really believe that that's important and like part of our responsibility as practitioners, I believe the same thing to be true for all practitioners. That acupuncturists speak accurately about what they do and not confuse a client into thinking they're getting dry needling, and that podiatrists are, clear with their clients that if it's coming from their hip and it's showing up in their feet, they need to work higher than the knee, and that's not in their scope. It would be another practitioner that they could refer to. And the same thing for chiropractic, for them to be vocal about hypermobility, and that, yes, dear client, you're going to always feel like you're out of alignment, and I'm going to always get an audible crack if you come here as a hypermobile, and that's not the place we should stop for you. We really want to work on getting you some strength training, because hypermobility requires that to be a balanced structure. So it matters to me that we're all honest and that we partner not only with our clients, but that we partner with each other, and that we partner with practitioners who do modalities that aren't what we're trained in, because that's how we can be in the most service. So I do have a course on partnering for a pain-free world where I talk about all of this, and I could go on and on and on about it because I just think it's that important. I think it's also, it's well placed when we're working with clients and when they come in with concerns and complaints. And what we want to avoid is negativity, and we want to stay in positivity and in possibility, most importantly. So what I've heard, not so much currently. I feel like I might be having some effect on the conversation, which would be delightful. But I've heard some practitioners get wrapped up in the story about the practitioners that their clients saw previous to them and how it wasn't right, or what the other practitioner did was wrong, or the other practitioner didn't explain things, or, we don't want to throw other practitioners under the bus. That doesn't work. Sometimes our clients can come in though. I mean, I've heard 3 times already this week, why didn't my doctor tell me that? And it would be tempting. It would be tempting to say, oh, they don't do, blah, blah, blah. And it would be tempting to sort of feed the negativity even a little. And I'm going to invite us all to not do that. Instead, what the answer is for all of us, for the betterment of all of us, what the answer is the reason they didn't tell you is because that's outside of their scope, but it's in mine. And it would be the same as me not telling you about heart surgery. That's out of my scope. Right. And so just give them the context of the parameters of where we work and where another practitioner works. Because sometimes it's not that the doctor deliberately withheld information, it's that it's just not in their conversation. Just like heart surgery never comes up in a treatment with a client of mine. It's not in my wheelhouse. I would never bring it up. It doesn't mean I didn't tell them something, right? So we want to just be really thoughtful that we're adding to the conversation and we're not adding fear and confusion and divisiveness to the conversation. That's my appeal for all of us. And that's why I think it's important for us to all talk openly about what we do know about each of the modalities so that we can learn. There was a time when I owned and ran an integrated wellness clinic in one of the cities where I lived, and every practitioner did something different. Every one of us did something different. And it was a beautiful way to be in full service to the clients. I love the concept. I still think it's an amazing way to work. It's an amazing way to be in service. It's not currently my work path, so I'm not still running that clinic, but I still believe in it a lot. And one of the things that I did make mandatory for our practitioners, for all of us who are on staff there, was that each one of us have one-on-one connections with each of the other practitioners, and that we become versed enough to have 2 or 3 sentences of clarity to explain what another practitioner does, so that we could explain it to our client and let them know how and when that modality might be needed. It really helped us educate our clients into a holistic way of getting their whole being addressed, rather than popping in for a massage and then leaving and going off with their life until they are, uncomfortable again, or popping in for a Pilates session and then going off in their life, and then maybe getting to dire straits with their pain and then finally scheduling an appointment with their chiropractor and kind of doing like reactive type wholeness. Doesn't work like that, right? Like we're working in the world of lifestyle, quality of life, and prevention. We're not emergency medicine people. So we want to train our clients into understanding how to live that way, to live a life of wellness and what each of the modalities offers them, rather than respond to them when they're in a crisis state, because that's what Western medicine does. By definition, Western medicine averts death. So that's why a Western medicine practitioner is not going to talk much about quality of life. It's not what they're trained in. It's what we're trained in. And we get to share that with our clients so that they know how to have exactly what they want in this lifetime in their body. Okay, so that's all that I have for you today. Anyway, like I said, I could go on about it, but that's all that I have for you today on these 3 specific modalities: chiropractic, podiatry, and acupuncture. I hope that it has been valuable conversation for you. I know a couple of you came in while I was talking. I'm really glad that you're here. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to come off mute and ask. You can come off camera and I'd love to see you and have a real conversation. You can also type it in the chat if you have a question, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'd also love to hear who it is in your network that you're referring to. If you're a massage therapist, for example, are you referring to a chiropractor regularly? Are you referring to a personal trainer? Are you a personal trainer and you have a massage therapist in your network? I'd love to hear who you're referring to and why. What I ask practitioners in the Mastery Practitioner Training Program to consider is, when you're referring someone, knowing the why behind it is really valuable. Because if we know the why behind it, then we're already connected with the intention that we have for our clients. And if we can communicate, well, not if, but when, because I make it mandatory that we message clearly, when we communicate the why to our clients, it brings them into the fold as well. And now they're knowledgeable about what they're up to. So now we become working partners with our clients in the path that they're up to. So Joan, I see that you unmuted. Do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
I am curious to see whether you are referring this to research-based information, of, is this your belief? Is this your opinion? How are you verifying the information that you are stating, that you're not throwing people under the bus? But I feel that this is your opinion and you would throw them underneath the bus, but then you quickly state that that the scope of our practice is to assess where, if these people are the experts in their field, if it is out of their scope, I trust that they would then refer on to another professional. So I'm just curious of, is this your belief system or is this research-based?
Oh, I love the question, Joan. So just before I answer you, what is your practice? Just so I know where you are. Are you manual or movement practitioner? What is it that you do?
Both.
Okay. Are you a massage therapist? Would you tell me what your title is?
I am a massage therapist, and I am a movement therapist.
Okay. Movement therapist.
So,
are you?
So people refer to me. I'm that in-between person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. A lot of us are.
So I've got doctors referring, physios referring, occupational therapists referring. So that is my scope of practice.
I love it. It's beautiful. And so when you say movement therapist, are you a yoga therapist or a different type of movement therapist?
I have a Pilates studio that I work with the machines.
So you're trained. Go ahead.
So I'm trained through Brent Anderson that works in the field of physiotherapy.
Okay.
So he combined his movement practice of Pilates more in through a therapy sessions versus a fitness session. So like any other modality, everybody has their own focus on how they move people.
Right. So you're doing more corrective movement than exercise for bodybuilding, strength training. Is that what, did I understand that correctly?
Well, Pilates has a variety. You can either, I've worked with Olympic athletes. I've worked with the joint rehabs. I've worked with pain people. I've worked with healthy bodies. I think that's the beauty of the method is that you can come in one session and have that variety and assess what the person needs at the time, not having a program that fits all one blueprint, or maybe at that moment an athlete needs something conventionally different, or maybe a joint replacement is needing movement through the spine versus the joint. I think that's the beauty of the method. It's assessing, it's gait, it's posture.
Got it. So and when you say the method, you mean you're referring to the method that the physio put together, or the method of Pilates?
Combination.
The combination of the physio plus the Pilates, that method. That's what you're referring to when you say the method? Okay, yeah, awesome. Great. So yeah, so just as you were saying, Joan, that you know that you're trained in this scope and that you blended that scope and that there's things that you do, I would guess that you are, like me, aware that there's also things we don't do. Is that correct? Would you say that there's things that you don't do? There's lots that you do, and then there's certain things that you just out of your scope that you don't do?
That's what I mentioned, that everybody is in their scope and their practice of what they've learned, what they've seen, and guidelines.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also their board of directors have guidelines. So I feel that any practitioner that feels that this is out of their scope, I work in a chiropractic clinic where I see a lot of people have success. I see the chiropractors refer out. I see them refer to all sorts of different clinical practitioners. I see them say, you need to move more. So I think that's a personal, very personal. It's like going to a massage therapist. Why does one person go to one person and another person goes to another? It is a preference. So I'm really curious where you are, your platform is, whether it's your belief system or is this research based. I don't feel we're in the scope of practice to assess people to that depth.
Assess people to which depth?
Of saying, oh, you don't need a chiropractor, or you don't need an acupuncturist, or you don't need this. That's why I'm curious where you're creating this platform of whether it's your belief system or whether it's research based.
Okay, cool. So I'm happy to hear you play back what you heard me say, because I can imagine how you heard me say what not to do, because I was coming up with parameters and limitations and the things that we don't always know out of the gate. And I would never tell a client you don't need something and not to do something. All I would let them know is what that modality does and empower them to make the right choice. And what I've heard from my clients when I let them know, for example, about acupuncture, is they're like, oh, well, the acupuncture didn't tell me. the acupuncturist, excuse me, didn't tell me, or the chiropractor didn't mention that. So I'm not giving them my opinion about what they should do for themselves. I'm giving them information, a broader knowledge base from which to choose.
Well, I think sometimes when you're not in the room and we really don't know the conversation, we don't know what the client has heard, I always say go back and ask the questions, get some more clarity, because I really don't know what happened in the room. And it's no different than you having a client. They hear maybe 80% because it takes 1,000 words before it digests.
Yeah, they hear less, actually. You're right. Yeah, none of us hears, including you and me right now, right? There's no way for us to hear 100% of what was shared, or even 80% is actually high. You're very generous with that. I appreciate you giving me the benefit of the doubt to hear everything that's said. Most people don't. You're right. It takes some repetition, and there's lots of, I've studied communication and listening as well. And it's definitely a science. It's amazing, actually, to me that any two people ever understand each other, given the complexity of true listening and reflective listening, for example. And when you add pain to it, the nervous system's, got its own agenda in those moments. So what I am not saying, Joan, what I'm not saying is that I am wiser than somebody else. I'm not saying that. I'm also not saying that I'm privy to a conversation I was not part of. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I've had enough clients come to me asking me over and over again for clarity, and that I believe that it is a professional responsibility for those of us who are in this industry to have clarity on what's happening outside of the work that we do. I didn't say to have skill and arrogance around it. I didn't say that, but it is important to know enough, like 2 or 3 sentences to know what some other modality is, to be able to offer some ideas, some clarity, especially if we are referring out. So what I heard actually you say back was like, I know better than the other practitioners. On the contrary, I have a whole wide network of other practitioners who do other modalities, much like what your chiropractor that you're connected with sounds like. And there's lots of times I refer out because I'm not going to waste anyone's time. And when they say to me what their experience was, or what the confusion was, or what the practice was that they experienced and it didn't work, what I get to do is fill in the gaps. Well, why didn't the body respond to that modality? Not what was wrong with that practitioner. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, if this client came from 3 different places, getting 3 different types of work, and they're still in pain, I get to piece together what was missing for them so that I can fill in the gap, not so I can throw someone under the bus. It's very different. The intention is very different in filling in the gaps.
Well, so I guess I heard you comment on assessing hypermobility and chiropractic. And to me, that is a scope of practice that the chiropractor would assess himself. And that's where it's important for the patient or your client to go back to the professional and ask those questions to them personally, rather than us gauge the answer, because we really don't know what happened in the room. We don't know where the adjustment was. Chiropractors adjust more than the spine. They adjust ankles, they adjust knees, they adjust ribs, they adjust elbows, shoulders. We really don't know what had happened, or whether it's a massage therapist, or whether it's a craniosacral therapist. That's just my network of working together as a group, is that if I do have a question, I will directly answer the practitioner, so I have a scope on his side, so that you are building networks and connections, rather than assuming that an acupuncturist did the treatment that the patient may have thought they have done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm feeling when you are talking. I feel that it sounds like you are throwing them underneath the bus quickly and then correcting yourself. And I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Okay. Yeah. Your perspective matters. And it's not my intention, and it's not what I was doing. I was speaking quickly, though. I will tell you that, because I'm getting in a lot of information in a short period of time. And I hear you that, assumption matters to you. So I'm wondering, who's made assumptions at you that didn't feel good? Because I can imagine that would certainly follow us for a long time. And it's just as much, it's the intention behind my share today was about information. And it's just as much of the responsibility of the patient or client to be informed as well. And I heard you say that the client gets to ask the chiropractor what they did. I hear you, Joan. And if the client doesn't know about hypermobility, they don't have a context in which to ask. So it's up to us to inform them. I don't tell a hypermobile client who's been seeing a chiropractor 3 times a week that they shouldn't do that. It's horrifying to me, because I wouldn't do it. And I am hypermobile, and I know the negative effect that has on our body. I experienced it, and I've studied it. But I wouldn't tell my client not to do it. What I would instead do, and what I do, is let them know about hypermobility and why they feel like they always need a correction. And then I invite them to go have that conversation with their chiropractor. They can't have that conversation with the chiropractor if they don't know their hypermobility. If they don't know even that hypermobility exists, they don't know how to have that conversation. So it's just as much important for the clients to be informed as it is for us to be informed about other practices. Same thing goes with acupuncture. I hear you. I wasn't in the room with any of my clients when they had acupuncture done. And when they have said to me that the acupuncturist put a needle in the muscle and released it, I press back in an informed, questioning, intent to be clear kind of way. And I just let them know, well, but acupuncture needles don't go into the muscle. They go into subos, which would be on the surface of the skin. Was their blood drawn? And if they say no, then I say, oh, well, then perhaps it was the energy that got channeled that caused the muscle to relax. That makes sense. And I have a conversation in that way. Is that offering more clarity for you?
Yeah, I think I'm not quite sure.
Okay. What's the question that you have? We have a couple minutes left, Joan. I would love it if you came off camera so we could actually have a conversation. It feels a little one-sided, which I know is, it sounds like that's what's rubbing you in my approach today. So I'd just love to have a conversation with you if you're open to that.
Well, I don't have the ability right now to come off camera.
Okay. So I just want to make sure your question's answered. I wasn't sure if you had a couple questions in there, or if I answered it. Have I answered your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear your word, but it doesn't sound like a yes, the way you're saying it. Has your question been answered for sure? Okay, I would love to make sure that your question was answered. Thank you, Joan, for bringing your question to the table today. Thank you to the rest of you who are here. I would love to hear how you're feeling on the conversation of referring and partnering with other practitioners and other modalities, and what you share with your clients. It matters. It matters that we have an open dialogue about it, and in a loving, supportive way. We don't need to be defensive towards each other, because that becomes divisive. And so the idea here is that we want to partner and become unified And we can certainly have differences in our approach to things. There's more people that need us than there are those of us to serve. So you get to absolutely do what you're doing. Harazal, you're on your way to work, but you wanted to say you appreciate being in these rooms. When I teach, I'm going to expand that. Oh, this is such a lovely note. Thank you. Let me go back to the top. Oh, it's really long. It's great. You appreciate being in these rooms when you teach. Your background is 20 years military as an EMT and practical nurse skill set. Ooh, super cool. LMT of 8 years and neurosomatic therapist of 2 years. Ooh, you got it going on. And for this conversation, I just want to say that in my observation as a body worker and coach, that we as practitioners continue to evolve and grow with knowledge to share with our patients. As for other providers, I believe they too need to be informed with what modalities are out there so they have the knowledge to refer out. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, we all get to know more about each other and, stay in the holistic realm so that not only are we treating our patients and clients holistically, but that we think wholly about what's available for them. We're amazing. I know all of you are amazing. That's why you're here. And we don't have all of it, right? Like we get to have a network of other practitioners and then be honest and open about what it is that we do. I think that our messaging to our peers is just as important and critical as our messaging to the people that we serve. So we get to be open in our communication and feel free to express and connect and work within our scope and embrace others. Yeah. So thank you so much for that note. I appreciate you. I appreciate that you're here. And I will look forward to seeing all of you at the next live practitioner training. Until then, continue to do great work out in the world.